The man who borrowed faces when I was 12. I saw a man step out of my bedroom mirror. He didn't climb or break the glass. He simply stepped, as though the mirror had always been a doorway, and I had just never noticed. He was tall, pale, and his skin seemed stretched too tight across his bones. But what I remember most wasn't his body, it was his face. Because he didn't have one. Where a mouth, eyes, and nose should have been, there was only smooth, blank skin. He looked like a mannequin someone had half finished. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. The man tilted his head as though listening. Then, slowly, he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out something small and wrinkled, and pressed it against his featureless skin. It was my mother's face. Her eyes blinked. Her lips parted. And then, like wet paper smoothing over glass, it stuck. Suddenly, my mother's smile was looking down at me, only wrong, too wide, too sharp, like the skin was stretched across the wrong skull. And then he spoke. "I need to borrow," he said in her voice. That was the night everything changed. The next morning, my mother was gone. Not missing. She was there, cooking, smiling, talking, but she wasn't her. She didn't remember the song she used to hum when washing dishes. She stared too long at nothing. And sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, she'd run her hands over her face, as if making sure it was still there. I told my dad. He said I was imagining things. I told my friends. They laughed. But I knew my mother wasn't my mother anymore. Because every night after that, the man came back. Sometimes, he'd borrow faces I didn't recognize. An old man's, a little girl's, a soldier's. He'd wear them like masks, his voice bending to fit each one. He never explained why, never stayed long. Always the same phrase, whispered like a ritual. "I need to borrow." Then he'd leave through the mirror. One night, I asked him, "Why mine? Why my family?" He froze. Slowly, his blank head turned to me. Then, without reaching into his pocket, his face began to grow. Piece by piece, my own features bubbled up from under the skin, my lips, my nose, my eyes all forming until I was staring into myself. When he spoke, it was my voice. "Because you look. Because you see." And then he left, leaving me awake until sunrise, clawing at my own skin to make sure it was still mine. By 16, I'd stopped sleeping. My grades tanked. I barely spoke. My mother, if it was still her, kept asking why I looked at her so strangely. My father stopped asking questions at all. But the man never stopped coming. And the faces he borrowed weren't always alive. One night, he wore the face of a girl from school who drowned 2 weeks earlier. Another time, the face of my uncle, who'd been buried months before. He never explained how he got them. Until one night, when I worked up the courage to follow him. It happened the night of my graduation. I was lying in bed, cap and gown shoved in the closet, when the mirror rippled and he stepped through. This time he carried 3 faces in his hands, wet and dripping as if freshly peeled. He pressed one to his blank skin and muttered, "I need to borrow." And before he could vanish, I whispered, "Take me with you." For the first time, he paused. Then he reached out, his long fingers grazing my wrist. The glass rippled, and I was pulled through. On the other side was a hallway. But not like any hallway in a house or school. It stretched forever, lined with mirrors that pulsed like living things. Inside each mirror, I saw faces floating, hundreds, thousands, pressed against the glass as if begging to get out. Some I recognized from missing posters. Others were strangers. All of them had the same hollow, silent scream. "This is where they wait," the man whispered in my voice. "Until I borrow." He reached into a mirror and pulled free a new face, dripping and trembling. The person inside clawed at the glass, eyes wide with horror as their features tore away. The man pressed it to his blank skin and smiled at me with a stranger's grin. "Someday," he said, "someone will borrow yours." I ran. The hallway twisted, endless, each mirror reflecting not me, but hundreds of versions of me crying, screaming, clawing at my own skin. No matter how far I went, I couldn't find the way back. The man's voice followed, overlapping itself in every stolen tone. "I need to borrow. I need to borrow." When I woke, I was in my bed. My mirror looked normal. My parents were downstairs. But when I looked in the bathroom, I saw it. The face in the mirror wasn't mine. It smiled at me, just a little too wide. And when I tried to scream, it whispered in my voice, "I need to borrow." Now, every day feels less real. My friends say I look tired. My father doesn't notice me anymore. My mother, if she is my mother, just watches, like she's waiting for something. I don't know how much longer I'll have before he comes to borrow me for good. But sometimes, when I'm very quiet, I hear scratching from the mirror. And I see someone trapped inside, banging on the glass, wearing my face. The man who collects silences. When I was a kid, I lived next to a strange house. Not haunted, not falling apart, just strange. The windows were always open, no matter the season. Curtains fluttered, but I never saw anyone inside. The grass never grew, but it was never cut either. It was like time didn't touch that place. My mother told me, "Don't stare, he'll notice." I asked, "Who?" And she whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "The man who collects silences." The first time I saw him, I didn't even realize it. It was the middle of the night, and the power had gone out. I woke to this strange, thick quiet, the kind that hums in your ears. And then, out in the street, I saw a man walking slowly, carrying a glass jar. The jar glowed faintly. Inside it, something swirled. Not smoke, not light, but sound. Like someone had bottled a moment of noise. He stopped at each house, tilted his head as though listening, and then carefully opened the jar. For a few seconds, the silence around me deepened so much I couldn't even hear my heartbeat. Then he sealed the jar again and moved on. It wasn't until he reached our house that I realized he wasn't collecting sound. He was taking it away. The next morning, my mother acted like nothing had happened, but I noticed things. At the breakfast table, she tried to hum the song she always did while cooking, but no sound came out. Her lips moved, but her hum had been stolen. When I asked if she was okay, her face twisted, not angry, not sad, but hollow, like she was reaching for something that wasn't there anymore. And then she said the words I'll never forget. "Once he takes your silence, you can't ever get it back." Weeks passed. More people lost little pieces of themselves. My father couldn't whistle anymore. My neighbor couldn't laugh out loud, only shake silently. Even the dogs stopped barking. Every night, the man walked. Every night, another jar glowed faintly in his hand, and every morning, the world felt thinner. I tried to stay awake one night, watching. He came down the street, slower than usual. The jars hanging from his coat clinked faintly, each one glowing with its stolen silence. When he stopped at my window, I held my breath. He tilted his head toward me, and then he smiled. It wasn't a human smile. Too many teeth, too wide. Then he pressed his hand to the glass, and I heard nothing. Not the creak of the house, not the rustle of trees, not even my own breathing. My silence had been stolen. After that, things got worse. I couldn't scream. I couldn't shout. Even if I stubbed my toe, the sound of my pain never came out. I could still speak, but my silence, the little moments of nothing between words, was gone. Do you know how terrifying it is to never hear quiet? Every second of my life was filled with background noise, buzzing, ringing, whispers under everything I said. It was like silence itself was a muscle I had lost. I told my mother. She only nodded, her eyes wet. Once he starts, she whispered, he always comes back for the rest. And he did. The next time he came, he took my father's pauses between words. From then on, my dad spoke in a constant, rushing stream of sentences, never able to stop, never able to rest his voice. He sounded like he was drowning in speech. The time after that, he took my best friend's breath before laughter. She could laugh, but it sounded wrong, a jagged, broken thing with no rhythm. And then he came for me again. This time, he didn't stop at my window. He came into my room. The mirror rippled, and he stepped out. Tall, thin, skin stretched too tight, and his coat clinking with hundreds of jars, each glowing faintly. He reached for me, and before I could move, he touched my throat. All the pauses between my words vanished. My voice turned into a horrible monotone, every sentence bleeding into the next, never a chance to rest. I was speaking even in my sleep. I begged him to stop, but it didn't matter. He only smiled, teeth too wide, and whispered in a voice that wasn't his, almost full. I don't know how long it went on, days, months. Every time I saw him, he took a little more. The silence of my footsteps, the silence of my sleep, the silence of my thoughts. Do you know what it's like to think without silence? Every memory, every fear, every regret screaming in your head nonstop, with no pause, no end. I tried covering mirrors. I tried smashing jars I thought were his. Nothing worked, because he doesn't live in the mirrors. He lives in the gaps, the empty spaces between heartbeats, the pauses between blinks, the breath before you say a word. That's where he waits. I'm writing this now because I don't have much left. I can't stop talking. Even as I type, I'm muttering every word under my breath. My voice is cracked, bleeding, but I can't stop. There's no silence left in me to rest in. And I can hear him outside my window again. The jars are brighter tonight. So many of them. When he finally takes the last of my silence, I think I'll still exist, but I'll never stop. My voice will spill into the world forever, trapped in one of his jars, buzzing, humming, screaming without pause. And if you're reading this, don't listen too long, because that faint hum behind my words, that's him. And he's listening to your silence now. The Library of Unfinished Dreams. When I was 19, I took a job at a storage facility on the edge of town. Graveyard shifts, barely any pay, but I needed the work. On my second week, I noticed something strange. Unit 47 had no lock. Every other door had a metal bolt and key tag, but 47 was always slightly open. When I asked my boss about it, he frowned and said, "Don't touch that one. It isn't on the lease." That night, curiosity got the better of me. I pushed the door open, and I swear to you, it wasn't a storage unit inside. It was a library, not a normal one. The shelves stretched impossibly high, vanishing into darkness above. No ladders, no lights, just row after row of books, each one black and unfinished, their titles written in handwriting that looked like it was changing when I blinked. And there was someone inside, a librarian. She wasn't old or young. Her face shifted every time I looked. Her clothes were stitched together from scraps of paper, and her eyes weren't eyes at all, but two torn-out sentences floating in empty sockets. She whispered, "Welcome to the Library of Unfinished Dreams." I should have run, but I didn't, because the books, they weren't fiction. They were dreams. I opened one at random. On the first page, I saw handwriting I recognized, my own. The dream I'd had when I was 6 years old, standing on a roof, watching the moon split into teeth. But it didn't stop where I woke up. The book kept going, finishing the dream for me, and the ending was wrong. In the book, the moon came down and swallowed me whole. The librarian whispered again, close enough for me to feel the paper of her voice against my skin. Every dream unfinished is kept here. Every dream that could have continued. Every path not walked, every sleep interrupted. We keep them until someone claims them. I asked, what happens if I claim one? Her smile stretched too wide. You finish it. She handed me a book that glowed faintly, like something alive was trapped inside. I didn't want to take it, but my hands moved anyway. On the cover was my name. That night, I dreamed again, but it wasn't like normal sleep. It was forced. I was back on that rooftop, staring at the moon with its rows of jagged teeth. Only this time, I couldn't wake up. The dream ran like a movie on rails, dragging me through the ending I had read in the book. I felt the shadow of the moon descend, its teeth closing around me. I screamed and screamed, but the dream didn't let go until the last page turned. When I woke up, my throat was raw. My bedsheets were chewed into shreds. And on my knitstand was the book. I tried to return it the next night, but when I went back to Unit 47, the library was bigger. The shelves had multiplied, and the books weren't just mine. I saw dreams from people I knew. My father's nightmare about drowning. My friend's recurring dream of a door with no handle. Even my ex's dream about teeth falling out. Except in the book, the teeth kept falling long after she woke, piling into mountains of bone. And worse, I saw books that hadn't been claimed yet, but were marked for me. Each spine had my name stamped on it, waiting. Hundreds, maybe thousands. The librarian leaned close, her paper-stitched mouth rustling as she whispered, "You will dream them all." I stopped sleeping after that. I stayed awake for 3 days, living on caffeine and panic. But dreams don't care. On the 4th night, I blinked, just once, and I was already there, in the library, walking the shelves in my own dream. And the books were opening by themselves, pages fluttering, ink dripping like blood. The librarian's voice echoed everywhere. Every unfinished dream must finish, or it finishes you. It's been weeks since then. I can't tell what's waking life and what's dream. Sometimes I see strangers with spines of books sticking out of their backs, walking through grocery stores. Sometimes I hear whispers from my walls, paper scraping against paper. And every morning, when I check my knitstand, there's a new book waiting for me. Always black, always with my name, always open to the first page. I don't know how long I can keep going, because the library doesn't just collect dreams, it collects dreamers. And last night, I saw something on the shelf I can't unsee. A book I haven't dreamed yet. Its title is simple, The Night You Never Woke Up. There are stories that feel wrong the moment you hear them. Stories you're not supposed to know. Like they're borrowed from someplace that shouldn't exist. Tonight, you're going to hear one of those stories. And if you stay until the end, you'll understand why people say, halfway dark is more than a channel. It's a door you're not meant to open. Welcome inside. The house that eats time. I was 23 the first time I found the house. Or maybe it found me. I was driving home after a late shift, when the road seemed longer than usual. I'd driven it 1,000 times before. 6 miles, 2 turns, then home. But that night, no matter how long I drove, the gas gauge never moved and the road stretched on forever. That's when I saw it. A house standing alone in a field where there should have been nothing. 2 stories tall, every window lit from within. The lights flickered, but not like electricity, more like candle flames or something alive breathing. I don't know why, but I pulled over. I told myself I just wanted directions. But deep down I knew the house had been waiting for me. The door was unlocked. Inside, everything was wrong. The wallpaper peeled in patterns that looked like maps of places I'd never seen. The clocks on the walls didn't tick in rhythm. Some rushed ahead, some dragged behind, others ticked backwards altogether. And then I heard it. A voice upstairs calling my name. Not whispering, not shouting, just speaking in the exact tone my mother used when I was a child and she wanted me to come home. But my mother had been dead for years. I climbed the stairs. Each step groaned like it hadn't been touched in decades. But the higher I went, the stranger it became. Halfway up, the air grew heavy. My phone said 3:11 in the morning, but when I checked again, it read 10:42, then 1:06 p.m., then yesterday. By the time I reached the landing, the phone screen had melted into nothing but shifting numbers. And the voice was closer. Come upstairs? The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Doors lined both sides, and behind each one I could hear different versions of myself. Behind the first door, me as a child, crying. Behind the second, me as a teenager, laughing with friends who didn't survive past high school. Behind the third, me as an old man, begging someone not to leave me alone. Every door was a different time of my life, playing out all at once. And at the very end of the hall was the room with the light under the door. The voice came from there. I opened it. Inside was me, sitting at a desk, hunched over, scribbling frantically in a notebook. The same clothes I was wearing, the same cuts on my hands. He looked up, and when he met my eyes, I felt something rip through me like a hook pulling at my ribs. He whispered, "You're late." Then he slid the notebook across the desk. On the cover, written in my own handwriting, was the title, "The Day You Were Devoured by the House." And when I opened it, I saw this exact moment. Word for word, my hands shaking, my heart pounding, reading what I'm writing right now. The last line on the page was, "He never left the house." I don't remember leaving, but I woke up in my car, parked outside. The house was gone. The field was empty. My phone read 3:12 in the morning, as if no time had passed. But when I got home, the notebook was still in my hands. And here's the part I can't explain. Every day since, a new entry appears in it, describing the day I'm about to have in perfect detail. The words write themselves in my own handwriting. But yesterday, the writing stopped halfway through a sentence. It ended with, "And when he looked up, he saw the house again, waiting for him." And I swear to you, I can see the glow from its windows right now, just past the tree line outside my apartment. If you're still here, you already know, this wasn't just a story. This was a warning. There are places that wait for us, places that write us into themselves, and once you step inside, you never really walk out. And if you're the kind of person who listens anyway, who can't help but stare at the things you shouldn't, then you belong here. This is Halfway Dark. Subscribe now and step inside again. Just don't be late. Some stories aren't meant to be told. They spread like a sickness, worming into your head until you can't think of anything else. Tonight's story isn't just strange, it's dangerous. But that's what we do here. You've stepped into Halfway Dark, the only place that opens doors nobody else dares unlock. Just don't say I didn't warn you. The Vulture Room. There's a rumor in my city. Everyone's heard it, but nobody admits it out loud. They say if you go into room 6B of the old hospital after midnight, you'll hear wings beating above your head. And if you stay too long, you won't come out the same. The hospital's been closed for years, boarded up, rotting from the inside. But that room, the door is always unlocked. No matter how many times people chain it, nail it, or wall it shut, by morning, it's open again. And the floor inside is covered with feathers. I didn't believe it, until my brother went missing. He was last seen near the hospital. His friends said he joked about sleeping in the Vulture Room to prove he wasn't scared. I broke in that night. The halls smelled like rust and mold, like something that had been alive too long. My flashlight flickered, the batteries draining faster than they should. And when I reached room 6B, the door was cracked open. Inside, the walls were black with soot or feathers. It was hard to tell. The air was thick, heavy, like 1,000 lungs were breathing in unison. And then I heard it, a low rustling. Wings, the ceiling was moving. Not with birds, but with something that looked like birds, only wrong. Dozens of black shapes clung upside down, their wings twitching, their heads turned backward. And their faces weren't faces, they were masks. Human faces, stretched thin and nailed to bone. Some were smiling, some were screaming, some were blank, and one of them was my brother's. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. From the center of the ceiling, something larger uncurled itself, taller than a man, with wings that scraped the walls and a beak made of rusted metal. Its eyes weren't eyes at all, but holes punched through reality. And when it spoke, the sound came from every face nailed to its body. "You're late." The masks on its wings began to twitch, their mouths opening and closing. And in 100 overlapping voices, they whispered the same thing. "Take one. Take one." Something dangled from the ceiling in front of me. A mask, fresh, still dripping, as if waiting for me. I realized then what the vulture room was. It wasn't eating people. It was collecting them. Every person who entered was given a mask, and once you put it on, you never left. You became part of the wings, part of the choir, and my brother had already chosen. I ran. I don't even remember leaving. But when I got home, there were feathers in my pockets. And worse, a mask on my bed. Not just any mask. My own face. I tried to throw it away. Burn it. Smash it. It always comes back. Always waiting. Sometimes it's hanging from the doorknob. Sometimes it's on my pillow. Sometimes I wake up and I'm wearing it. And when I wear it, I can hear them, the wings, the whispers, the endless chorus of voices begging me to come back, begging me to join them, begging me to finish what I started. I know I won't resist forever, because the last time I put the mask on, I heard my brother's voice whispering behind it, "Hurry, you're late." And when I looked in the mirror, the mask wasn't on my face anymore. It was underneath it. You've just heard the story of the vulture room. And if you're wondering if it's real, ask yourself this. Why do you hear wings beating in your ears right now? Why do you feel like something's watching you from the ceiling? That's how it starts. If you come back for more, don't say I didn't warn you. This is Halfway Dark, the place where the masks always fit and the stories never let you go. Subscribe now before your face ends up on their wings. There are stories you expect, and then there are stories that hit you like a sickness. Stories that bend reality in ways you can't prepare for. If you're hearing this, it means you've already gone too far. But that's why you're here, isn't it? This is Halfway Dark, where horror doesn't just scare you, it rewires you. The Man Who Eats Names? When I was little, my grandmother used to warn me, never say your name after midnight. That's when he's listening. I thought it was just superstition, something old people say to keep kids quiet at night. But I know now it wasn't, because the first time I heard him, I was 17. It was just after midnight. I was brushing my teeth, humming to myself, and then, in the silence between hums, I heard it. A man's voice, whispering my name, not from outside, not from inside my head, from underneath the silence. I froze. The voice whispered again, slower this time, like it was tasting the syllables. And when I looked in the mirror, I swear my reflection nodded it too. I didn't tell anyone, but the next day, weird things started happening. When people said my name, they stumbled, like the word caught in their throats, like it was harder to say than it should have been. A teacher paused mid-roll call, squinting at the paper as if the letters were blurred. My best friend laughed nervously when she couldn't remember how to pronounce it, even though she'd known me for years. By the end of the week, even my parents hesitated before speaking it, like my name was being eaten. That night, I heard him again. This time, he wasn't whispering, he was chewing. Slow, wet, tearing sounds, followed by a low groan of satisfaction. And then, through the chewing, he whispered, "Almost finished." Names started disappearing around me. The kid who sat next to me in math, gone. His desk empty, teachers never mentioned him. His picture vanished from the yearbook. My neighbor's dog, nobody remembered it had ever lived there. Even my grandmother, the one who warned me. Her chair sat empty, her room abandoned, and when I asked about her, my parents only frowned. We never had family here, but I remember, I know, because every time he eats a name, I hear it. The crunch of it, the swallow, the satisfied sigh. Last night, he came closer. I woke to the sound of breathing at the end of my bed. Heavy, slow. When I sat up, I saw a man-shaped shadow. No face, no features. Just a mouth that stretched impossibly wide, dripping with black saliva. He leaned forward, lips pulling back into something like a smile, and whispered what was left of my name. It wasn't all there anymore, just fragments, like teeth broken out of a jaw. And then he asked me something I'll never forget. "Do you want to see what you taste like?" I don't know how much longer I have. People already avoid me without knowing why. My name is rotting, falling out of existence, letter by letter. When I look in the mirror, my reflection's lips move, but no sound comes out. My mouth is empty, hollow, and tonight I can hear him chewing again. Closer, louder, the sound of teeth grinding bone. And when I try to scream, nothing comes out, because my name is almost gone. And once it's gone completely, so am I. That was the story of the man who eats names. If you're still repeating your own name under your breath right now, trying to make sure it's still there, you're not alone. That's the danger of listening this far. The story doesn't let go. And if you want more, if you want to keep stepping into places nobody else dares, this is Halfway Dark. Subscribe now, before your name is the next one he eats. Most horror stories give you a safe place to stand, a flashlight in the dark, a door to run through, a monster you can point at. But tonight's story doesn't give you safety. It takes it away. This is Halfway Dark, where terror isn't just told, it's delivered straight into your bones. Welcome to the story that will not stop once it starts. The broadcast that knows your name. It started with a radio station that shouldn't exist. At first, people called it a rumor, an urban legend, a number station like the ones Cold War spies used. Only this one didn't transmit numbers. It transmitted you. The first person to talk about it was a trucker. He swore that, while driving late at night through the state highway, his CB radio picked up a frequency he'd never heard before. No call letters, no static, just a voice. A woman's voice. She said his name, his full name. And then she began describing his life in perfect detail. Where he was born, his first pet, his most recent lie. The words he had whispered to himself that morning when he thought nobody could hear. By the time he ripped the radio out of his dash and threw it into the road, he was sobbing. The next day, he was gone. Truck abandoned. House empty, no trace. After that, the stories multiplied. People driving alone late at night, scrolling through static, and suddenly landing on the broadcast. Always the same voice. Calm, measured, female, never angry, never kind. She would greet you by name. She would tell you secrets nobody else knew. She would tell you things that hadn't happened yet. And then she would ask a question. Nobody ever said what the question was. Because once you heard it, you didn't come back. I should have left it alone, but I couldn't. I'm a night janitor at a college, and the quiet gets to you. I'd listen to the radio just to fill the silence. One night, scrolling through dead air, I heard it. At first, it was faint. A hum, like someone breathing close to the mic. Then the voice, sharp and clear, as though she were sitting beside me. She said my name, Not just my name, my childhood nickname. The one nobody but my grandmother used, and she'd been dead for years. Then she told me about the mole on my back, the scar on my ankle, the thoughts I had about my boss that I never told anyone. And then, in the same calm, measured tone, she whispered, "Do you want to hear the rest of your life?" I froze, because I knew this was the question, the one nobody ever answered. And yet, the silence stretched so long, my lips moved on their own. Yes, that's when the broadcast changed. Her voice vanished. In its place, I heard my own voice, but not saying what I was saying, not repeating me, reading me, word for word, describing what I was doing at that exact moment. He sits frozen in the chair, radio pressed close, veins humming with dread. I dropped the radio, heart pounding. But the voice didn't stop. He drops the radio, heart pounding. I tried turning it off, unplugging it, smashing it. But even with the radio in pieces, the voice kept going, from the shards, from the static in the walls, from the hum in the lights, always narrating me, always a few seconds ahead. He runs to the door. He grips the handle. He realizes it won't open. And then I realized I hadn't moved yet. I bolted for the door. The handle stuck, exactly as the broadcast said. I yanked harder. My palms split open. My breath came in shallow gasps. The broadcast whispered, "He bleeds. He chokes. He waits." And suddenly, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't even try, because the broadcast wasn't predicting me. It was writing me. I don't remember how I got home. I only know that when I woke the next morning, the pieces of the radio were on my nightstand, neatly stacked. And when I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, the broadcast started again, not from a radio, not from a speaker, from inside me. A constant low narration, not out loud, but underneath my thoughts. She sits at the kitchen table, hands shaking, pretending this isn't happening. She tells herself she can leave. She tells herself she is safe. I can't think without it, because every thought is followed by her version of it. And worse, she's getting further ahead. She wonders when the story ends. She doesn't realize the story has already ended. I tried telling a friend. He thought I was losing it, told me to write it down. So I did. I wrote everything I heard. When I finished, he read it, and his face went white, because the last page didn't end where I stopped. It kept going, in my handwriting, describing what he was about to do. And then it happened, exactly as written. He hasn't spoken to me since, won't even look me in the eye. I don't know how much longer I have. The narration is so far ahead now, I feel like I'm just acting out a script. She finishes her confession. She hopes someone listens. She doesn't realize they already have. That's the last line I heard. And if you're hearing this, it means the broadcast has already found you too, because it doesn't stay on the radio. It travels through wires, through signals, through voices, and now through me. That was the broadcast that knows your name. And if you listened this far, you already know the truth. You're not the audience anymore. You're part of the story. That's how it spreads. That's how it survives. If you're brave enough to keep going, if you're addicted enough to want more, you know where to come. This is Halfway Dark. Subscribe now before you hear your name next. Some horror makes you scream. The horror we tell here makes you stare, makes you sit up in bed and whisper, "What did I just listen to?" This is Halfway Dark, and tonight's story isn't just a tale, it's a door. Once you hear it open, it won't close. If you're new here, subscribe right now before this one follows you back out. The room that hums, there's a sound only some people hear. Not tinnitus, not a ringing in the ears. It's more like a hum, low, steady, mechanical, but alive. The first time you hear it, You think it's coming from somewhere in the house. A fridge, a vent, some appliance left running. But then you realize it's not in the house. It's in one room, always the same room. And once you hear it, that room is no longer safe. When I was a kid, it was the upstairs bathroom. Middle of the night, I'd creep down the hall and hear it. A hum under the silence. Too deep to be plumbing, too steady to be the wind. The closer I got to the bathroom door, the louder it got, until the doorknob began to vibrate. Like something was waiting on the other side. I thought it was my imagination, until I told my cousin about it one summer. He went upstairs, laughing at me, and put his ear to the door. When he came back, he wasn't laughing. He looked pale. His lips wouldn't stop moving, not talking, just moving, like he was mouthing words to something only he could hear. That night, he sleepwalked into the bathroom, and when we found him the next morning, he was sitting in the bathtub, humming, the exact same pitch. We never saw him again after that summer. My aunt and uncle said he went away, no explanation, but I remember the way his lips kept moving. I remember the hum. Years later, it came back. Different house, different city. This time it was the laundry room. I heard it one night while folding clothes. Same steady hum, vibrating through the walls. I pressed my hand against the plaster and felt it pulse, like a slow heartbeat. Then the light flickered, and in the brief darkness I saw, for just a second, the silhouette of someone standing behind me. Mouth open, humming. I told myself it wasn't real. But the next day, when I played back security camera footage from the house, I saw something that shouldn't have been there. The footage showed me standing in the laundry room, folding clothes, but the hum, it was on the audio. And worse, in the video, my mouth was moving, wide, slow, shaping the hum, even though I know I wasn't. People who hear it too long change. That's what I've figured out. It's not just a sound, it's a signal. It gets inside you. First you hear it, then you echo it. Then it makes a room inside you. A hollow place, a second chamber. That's where they come from. I've seen them. When I tried to record the hum with a microphone, the file corrupted. Instead of audio, the waveform displayed shapes, not letters. Not numbers, rooms, floor plans, blueprints of places that don't exist, except they do. Because one night, when I played the recording backwards, the walls of my bedroom began to shift. The angles bent wrong, corners stretched too far, and a door appeared where the closet should have been. Behind it, darkness. And the hum, I didn't go through. I'm not that stupid. But I know others who have. And none of them come back, right? A girl online told me she went into her humming room at 3 in the morning. She found a staircase spiraling down into a place that looked like her house, but empty, rotting. She saw her own face peeking from behind the curtains. But it wasn't her. It smiled without moving its lips. And when she woke the next day, her family swore she'd been missing for a week. That's the worst part. The hum eats time. Every time I hear it now, I lose track. Minutes slip. Hours vanish. And when I snap back, I'm always standing closer to the humming door, no matter where I start, like it's pulling me, like it's choosing me. If you're listening to this and you're still here, do yourself a favor. Don't go searching for it. Don't walk down your hall tonight listening for the sound. Because once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And once a room chooses you, it doesn't let go. I can hear it now, louder than ever. Not in the bathroom, not in the laundry room. In my chest, my ribs vibrate with it, my throat hums when I breathe. It's building something inside me, a doorway. And when it's finished, I think something's going to step through. And I don't think it's me. That was the room that hums. And if you caught yourself listening for the sound, that's how it starts. These stories aren't just horror, they're infection. If you're new here, subscribe to Halfway Dark before the hum chooses your room next. And if you're already part of the dark, share this, spread it. The more people who hear it, the safer you'll be. At least, that's what the hum tells me.